Hey, welcome back to another edition of Everything Football 62. I'm your host, Jonathan Big Tex Johnson, a.k.a. Uncle Tex, a.k.a. Professor Tex. Before we start, guys got any questions, comments, concerns, smash the like button, subscribe to the page. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below, and we go ahead and talk about it. Yeah, I'm going to talk about this Hall of Fame class of 2024. Solid class. Very solid class. I like this class. Now, I do have one issue with it, and I'm going to get into that later on. You probably see by the title. But I definitely, this is a solid class. We're going to start first with Dwight Freeney, an undersized defensive end from out of Syracuse and whatnot that ended up, that would end up having a 125 and a half sacks. All-Pro. I think 3 years and whatnot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I know I'm counting. It's already up here. 7-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro first team. Probably had a couple of 2 or 3 second team and whatnot. Freeney was a menace. Go back, great spin move and whatnot for those Indianapolis Colts teams and whatnot. It was great to see him getting in. He was the catalyst of that team on the defense, especially since Bob Sanders, which I wish could have played longer because the guy was a beast. But Dwight Freeney was that guy. I don't have any problem with him getting in as a first ballot Hall of Famer and whatnot. He was that guy for that time frame. He was a 2000 team, 2000 All-Decade team, so he gets a lot of props. Played a long time in the game. Played 11, 12, 13, about 15, 16 years and whatnot. Have no problem with him at all in the getting into the Hall of Fame. Randy Gradishar. We go to Randy Gradishar. I've already done a piece on Randy Gradishar. I did a piece on Randy Gradishar a couple of so months ago, probably might have been a year or so ago. But I already did a piece on him and why he's the godfather of the inside linebacker running that 3-4, because nobody was running that 3-4 until Denver kind of came on the scene. And he ran that 3-4. He's the inside linebacker. Unfortunately for him, he had between that and middle linebacker Jack Lambert running the 4-3 over in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh dominating the way they did. Gradishar, sure tackler. The guy, I think a couple of times, over 200 tackles. Big plays that he came up with and whatnot. He has 3 touchdowns. Hell of a guy on that 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. He's going to be there. Sure tackler out of Ohio State. Kid from out of Ohio. It's good to see them in. It's good to see that he's in there. He's at 71 years old, so he can somewhat still kind of take it in. But he should have been in 20 years ago, if they're going to be fair. Hall of Fame really needs to get certain things right with certain players and whatnot, and Gradishar is one of them. I'm glad he's able to still be knowing, because those guys that played back during that time, it's not a lot left up there in the head department. Not saying that to be funny, but that's just the truth of the matter and whatnot. And real good as a football person. Really good to see him. And Tom Jackson, who's I've always have said, and I'll veer off a little bit here, always said that he was the, because I don't like a lot of these announcers or these guys that sit up there and talk about football and their brand. A lot of these guys come up. Tom Jackson and Chris Berman probably was the best when it came to talking about football, especially Tom Jackson. Articulate, very passionate and whatnot. And he's always made this case for Randy Gradishar. They're good friends. He's going to actually be the presenter for him. And I think it's no better person than that of Tom Jackson that played with this guy and whatnot. And Tom Jackson was nice in his own right, and stuff like that. So yeah, you got Devin Hester is the next. Devin Hester was a 4-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro. If you look at this young man's, look at what he did. He had in 2006, his rookie year, 47 returns for 600 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's 12.8. As punt returner, 20 returns as a kick returner, 528. He scored 5 touchdowns that year. 2007, 42. He had 4 touchdowns, 651 yards, and 43. I mean, you look at what he's probably considered, and rightfully so, the greatest punt returner, kick returner of all time. You've had some guys, whether it be Deion Sanders, whether it be Billy White Shoes Johnson, whether it be Darren Woodson, a lot of other different guys and whatnot. My man from the Kansas City Chiefs, Dante, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Those are guys up there. He tilted the field. Very extremely talented. Could have been used more as far as I'm concerned as a wide receiver. He did have some receiver stats, but he could have easily been that guy that that had more than 255. Let me see how many receptions. 255 receptions for only 3,301 yards. I don't understand. 331 yards. 3,331 yards. Could have been used a lot more as a wide receiver because he did have some decent hands, but he was a hell of a player, and it's rightfully so that they need to put him in there and whatnot. We go back, and then we'll see Andre Johnson. Andre Johnson, hell of a player, which is basically he was Megatron before Megatron, the size and everything that he had with him. And we're talking about someone 6'3", 230 and whatnot, Hall of Famer, 7-time Pro Bowl, 2-time All-Pro. Never really had a serious quarterback with him, even though he led the league twice in receiving yardage, as well as 1 year in receptions and 3 years as an average, much like a Julio Jones, so to speak. Never really had a quarterback that he played with. You can't name them. Had some pretty decent teams and whatnot that he played for. Needed a quarterback. Never really had the quarterback at that particular position to really do that with him. Calvin Johnson actually had Matthew Stafford, who was a solid quarterback. Good to see the young man in. I'm glad he's in. He should be in and whatnot. And, he his stats, a lot of people want to talk about, well, he never had a double digit. His most was 9 in 2009. And he also led the league in yards back-to-back years, 2008, 2009. And, he deserves to definitely be in. First ballot Hall of Famer, close to it anyway, and whatnot. Hell of a wide receiver, hell of a talent. Size, hands, he had everything that you wanted. Okay, let's go back here. Now we go to Seve McMichael. This is where we all see the title. This is where I have a problem at. Seve McMichael, 2-time Pro Bowl, 2-time All-Pro. When you think of defensive tackles, especially during that of the 80s, Seve McMichael does not jump up to me as that. Now, I have been watching and dealing with Seve McMichael for the last couple of years and whatnot, and he's doing with the ALS, the Lou Gehrig's disease, and whatnot. And one of the last things he said when he could actually speak, he said he wanted to make sure he went into the Hall of Fame. Now, let's be serious here. And you guys, get real with me. Seve McMichael was not a Randy White. Okay? He was not a Randy White. He wasn't a Marilyn Olsen. He wasn't a Bob Lilly. He wasn't any of these guys. He was a very good defensive tackle. Mongo, as they call him. Went to wrestling and all this other type of stuff. But he played on the team 84, 85, 86, 87, 80, he stretched to 88. Hell of a defense, especially in 85 when they brought everything together and won the Super Bowl. I don't think he goes in. He goes in basically because he has Lou Gehrig's disease. If you look at when they go and knock on his door or when they called him, so to speak, this man, his wife had to come and, be there in his place. I don't think that Seve McMichael is that of a Hall of Famer. Almost the same way I felt about Joe Klecko. Those guys, when I think of Hall of Famers, they don't, doesn't come up to me like that. Doesn't register. Even if we go and to look at the all-decade team of the 80s, he's not up there. They got Keith Millard, who was a hell of a defensive tackle, defensive player of the year, almost the same type of stuff, but only played 4 or 5 years because he oftentimes injured. McMichael played a long time, Texas kid and stuff like that. Much props out to him. And a Texas great at the University of Texas. But I don't think that he should be in the Hall of Fame based upon, it's almost like it's a pity thing that they gave to him, which he shouldn't get, in my opinion. You know, in my opinion, that's just how that's how I feel about the whole situation. So he doesn't really, in my opinion, let's go back and look. You're talking about somebody that had a Seve McMichael, 95 sacks. Now, no defensive player of the year. Won a Super Bowl, 2 All-Pro teams, a couple of the second teams. But this was more of a pity thing, I think, and I honestly feel. And he shouldn't have went up there. You could have put somebody up there like, let's say, a Torrey Holt. You know what I'm saying? So that's a whole other story. Or my man that was Gates, Antonio Gates, from that of the San Diego Chargers. Could have went in before him because of the productivity that both those guys basically had on offense. And I saw the phone call with Richard Dent to his wife and stuff like that, and I get it, but I don't put him up there. I don't put him up there as a Hall of Famer and whatnot. You know, and that's and really that dude. Let's be perfectly clear. Those Bears teams of '85, Walter Payton, first ballot Hall of Famer, Mike Singletary, first ballot Hall of Famer. That's it. Now you want to talk about Dan Hampton, you want to talk about Richard Dent, fine. But even with those guys were good. Guys were very good. But those guys, in my opinion, nah. And then barely with them, and they still got in. And then you throw in Seve McMichael. I don't think he gets that, but that's just my opinion. You can get pissed off, mad, hate mail, all this other kind of shit. That's my opinion. We're talking about the play. We're not talking about his condition. We're not talking about his condition. Because if you go to Mike Singletary, one of the top linebackers that ever played the game. Walter Payton, one of the top running backs that ever played the game. Bar none, first ballot Hall of Famers. How does McMichael, how does Dent, how does Hampton, but especially McMichael fit into that? They really don't. But they put in who they want to put in. And like I said, a lot of these Hall of Fame writers or whatever and voters and whatnot, in my opinion, they're lazy. Julius Peppers. The next one. Julius Peppers, Hall of Famer, 9-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro. Probably about 4 or 5 times second team. He was that guy. Athletic freak, basketball player. You name it, he did it. He had the interception. We're talking about it's a defensive end. He has 4 touchdowns. It might be some more or whatever and stuff like that. But doing that, this guy had 11 interceptions as a defensive end. Just 6'7", 290. It's a lot of things that you could do. Julius Peppers was sick. He was that guy. Period of the story. Still don't know what really went on with them between the and Carolina. Probably came down to money. He ended up going to the Bears and the Packers and whatnot. Bears and the Packers, then back to Carolina and finished up the Carolina that he played in. He was 38 years old, damn near pushing 40. Definitely deserved to be in coming in the time that he came in. Patrick Willis. I don't really think that we have to really say anything else about Patrick Willis. and whatnot. Patrick Willis, he was a joy to see. Him and Bowman was the best inside linebackers that I could say, period. And you're talking about the 3-4. Now, I've said the best inside linebackers on a Pro Bowl team, that of Ray Lewis and that of Junior Seau. These guys played together. And these guys are up for awards and whatnot. You go back to Bowman before he got hurt, before Willis got hurt, them guys are the best inside linebackers. They can talk about Greenlaw. They can talk about Warner in San Francisco's lore. They're not seeing these fucking guys here. These guys had every fucking thing. Shame they didn't win the Super Bowl, but they was up against the Ravens team, was a little bit better than them and whatnot. But I'm like, these guys as a duo, they were something. But Patrick Willis should have went in a year or two ago. But because he only played 8 years, he didn't. Because I always tell you guys, about 9 to 10 years, several All-Pros, several Pro Bowls, and some playoff games here and there. And that's where it came in at, where he had to wait. And he shouldn't have really had to wait, but he got hurt in his 8th year and barely played. And that's why they made him wait. Other than that, he's first ballot. He's first ballot. Okay? And those are the guys that I look at and whatnot. That there was something, man. You know, it was a strong class. But only thing that I have is Seve McMichael. They could have put an offensive player on there because everybody on here they got, for the most part, was defense, with the exception even down to Devin Hester. But Andre Johnson, only full-time offensive guy on there. They could have easily put either that Antonio Gates or that of Torrey Holt on that particular team. That's why I disagree with in front of Seve McMichael. Now, some of the things that came about, Christian McCaffrey made Offensive Player of the Year. And you know, I've been critical of him for a while. And this particular year here, 2023 season, he did everything. And I appreciate that. I said, okay, now we doing something. Because I've already told you guys, 435 as a rookie, 1098 as a second year, third year, 1387, and he did 1,000. Still wasn't the best back, in my opinion, because I want my running backs to be running backs. Then he literally missed 2 years, 1139 last year, and then 1459 this year. If you go back to Jim Taylor, the last guy that won the MVP, last white cat that actually won the MVP and led the league in rushing 61 years ago, was that of Jim Taylor. He did that in 14 games. 14. Old boy did it in 16. Now you tell me what's what. Okay? But like I say, though, Christian McCaffrey, Offensive Player of the Year, I figured he was going to get that. He was up for also the MVP and whatnot. And now for him to go over into that Marshall Faulk, Thurman Thomas, LaDainian Tomlinson, where I need to see that for the next 3 years. And then we can talk about Hall of Fame with this guy. That's if he does it. He's 27, so we know what happens with backs with that. And that's my take on the Hall of Fame. You guys enjoy the game. I got Kansas City winning because they got the Grim Reaper there. And like I tell you guys all the time, there's no GOAT, there's no greatest of all time, as long as time is still going on. And like I tell you guys, numbers don't lie and get emotional. People do. You guys have a great one. Enjoy your Super Bowl. All right?